Boyce Watkins. Welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. Today, I was reading some stuff about T.I. and Tiny, and T.I. and Tiny have unfortunately been hit with some pretty ugly accusations that they are involved in sex trafficking. I did not expect that. I was kind of surprised by such a heavy allegation. In fact, it's actually deeper than just sex trafficking. There's a lady and a group of people apparently that have accused the couple of not just trafficking sex, but also drugging women against their will. Obviously, this is very serious. These allegations are a big deal. But I want to talk about it, hopefully in an intelligent way, so we can kind of process all this. And so I brought in my very good friend, partner in crime, Miss Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses, all the way from Botswana. How you doing today, Noma?
I'm doing great, boys. How are you?
Doing very well, very well. And so everybody in the chat, say hi to Nomalanga. All right. So now T.I., I gotta fess up. You know, T.I., I always thought he was a great rapper. I met him in Ghana maybe about 9 months ago, and he and his wife Tiny was there. His daughter was there. They were very nice. We didn't sit around and hang out or anything. We didn't go to the club or anything like that. But I have met him in person, and I'm really sad to hear this. But you know, I think the right thing to do is to kind of talk about it and to be honest and try to be fair. So first of all, everybody in the chat, I want to ask you guys this. And by the way, no, I had to mute because I heard a little bit of feedback. So, but I'll make sure you're unmuted. But give me a yes or no if you heard about the allegations against T.I. and Tiny. Give me a yes or no. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read up on a little bit of this so that you can kind of get caught up on what's going on. According to Vulture, it says T.I. and his wife Tiny have denied claims of sexual assault and facilitating sexual abuse after Atlanta resident Sabrina Peterson posted screenshots to her Instagram story of direct messages from over 24 alleged victims. The accusers claim that T.I. born Clifford Harris and Tamika Tiny Harris pressured them to take drugs, to take off their clothes, and to have sex with them with them or others present. Some said they lost consciousness while with T.I. and Tiny or woke up without remembering the previous night. Peterson began posting the allegations to her Instagram story on January 28th after she previously alleged that T.I. held her at gunpoint. The Harrises issued a statement denying the allegations. Mr. and Mrs. Harris want to be on record and more importantly, want the public to know they emphatically deny in the strongest way possible the egregiously appalling allegations being made against them by Sabrina Peterson, a spokesperson told Vulture. The Harrises have had difficulty with this woman for well over a decade. They are taking this matter very seriously, and if these allegations don't end, they will take appropriate legal action. Tiny also previously defended her husband on Instagram, posting a photo of him with their 2 children, who she claimed were Peterson's, and alluded to her family's relationship with Peterson. She said, quote, "He was uncle 2 years ago. Now, when did you say my husband assaulted you? Did you change your mind or change your back?" Tiny wrote, adding, "Stop harassing my family." This sounds like a mess. Whew, man. Noma, what say you?
So the first thing that stuck out to me was that there was a group of women that said they were required to take drugs before they could enter the house. If someone required me to take drugs to enter their house, I would just not enter their house. That's the first thing. The second thing that I actually applaud is that Tiny and her husband, T.I., are sticking together and fighting this together, because one of the things that has become apparent to me, you know, having been, although in a very small way, in the media industry, is that I've noticed that when people become quote unquote famous or well known, they're subject to attacks from opportunists. And I don't know the full story here, so I don't know if all these women are opportunists, but I'm not quick to believe a bunch of people attacking somebody who they perceive as more famous than them, more rich than them, or is significantly more accomplished or anything like that. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story. A couple of years ago, I have a friend who, again, is not that famous, but ended up with actually more than one friend who have been attacked viciously. And because I know them personally, and I know that The stories that are made up about them are not true because I know what the actual stories are. I'm just very aware of the fact that you can be very, very viciously attacked and have your reputation destroyed by disgruntled people that you've either dealt with or have known. And I'm just not quick to believe it.
Mm. Well, I do think that there's something to be said about proof. I know that it's old fashioned to ask for proof and evidence, but I think that that's important, right? Because you're right. It's there's a lot of questions that should be asked on both sides of the equation, right? It's like just because you're the alleged victim or you present yourself as the victim, that doesn't mean that you can't be scrutinized just like the people that you're accusing, because you could be the predator pretending to be the victim, right? That's what predators do. They pretend to be victims, right? And so I think that asking questions is okay. And I think that one of the biggest mistakes that's been made with Me Too and everything else is that some people believe you have no right to ask questions of the alleged victim. Like, well, did you go to the police? What did the police say? What evidence do you have? Okay, you called the person 47 times in the last 2 years. Could this be because you're just salty and mad because they didn't call you back? If they called you back, would this be a different story? It doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means that questions should be asked. What do you think, Noma?
I absolutely agree. One of the things that has really turned me off about the Me Too movement, the feminist movement, or anytime women say just believe other women, is that they don't want us to ask questions. And sometimes we really have valid questions. And like you said, sometimes the people that we think are the perpetrators are actually the victims of a malicious attack or facts that have been twisted and turned. Like, I really don't care if T.I. and his wife invited people over and had drugs and orgies and things. I don't care. But if you participate in that and then decide to use it as an opportunity to destroy other people's lives, then I have questions. If you are forced, then I have to also ask questions. How did they force you? If they say, come into our house, take drugs, you really can say no. Even if you're desperate for money, you can choose your dignity or whatever you came from and go back to it and not take the money and the drugs and then put yourself in a compromising position. Because I know that with a lot of these stories, they'll say that, well, I was desperate for an opportunity and they said that I should take the drugs. Well, sometimes you just have to let the opportunity go. I saw where someone said that there was a gun held to their head, but it sounded like one woman said that, not all of them. So maybe the woman who had a gun held to their head, again, I still have questions. Was he holding the gun to your head and saying, take the drugs and have an orgy? And then afterwards, what did you do? What happened? We have to ask questions. And most of the time, we're not allowed to ask questions. So we're just supposed to either believe them. And in my case, I just say, if you can't be asked questions, then I have to question whether you're telling the truth or not.
Well, we talk a lot about toxic masculinity and predatory behavior, etc. But I believe that we should have other terminology that that could potentially describe other situations like toxic victimhood or predatory victimhood. Where you weaponize your role as the default victim to come back and to basically to settle a vendetta you have against somebody. Now I'm not trying to say that this didn't happen though. Here's the thing, right? I want to make this clear. I don't know. None of us knows anything about T.I. or Tiny's personal life, right? None of us know this, right? We only know he said, she said. But I think it's legitimate when Tiny stepped forward and says, okay, 2 years ago, he was like, you wanted him to be an uncle to your sons. You were bragging about the fact that you were affiliated with him. So that at the very least says that whatever was going on in that whole relationship, that she had to have been at least somewhat okay with it. I mean, I'm sure that people can twist it and say it however they want, but my natural instinct says, okay, whatever was going on before that point, you seem to be okay with that. Most people that don't want to be around a predator are not going to take a picture with their sons and say, hey, me and this predator are buddies. So that does invoke a little bit of, I don't want to call it suspicion, because I don't want to, dismiss the allegations like all out of hand. But it's kind of interesting where you say, okay, this person was a bad person who did bad things to me, but for years I was okay with them doing bad things to me until I wasn't okay anymore. It almost reminds me of like when somebody is working next to Donald Trump, like Omarosa, spent a lot of years working right next to Donald Trump, was co-signing on everything Donald Trump did, was perfectly happy with Donald Trump, would defend Donald Trump, love Donald Trump, right? And then they fall out, and then suddenly it's like, let me tell you what a terrible person Donald Trump is. Yeah, we knew he was a terrible person, which was why we didn't understand why you were buddied up with him for so long. But now you sound like somebody who's trying to settle a score. That if he had wrote the check and kept on doing whatever it was going on that made you happy before, you wouldn't be bringing this out. And this makes you different from a righteous victim who literally was duped into something that she did not want to participate in. And I don't know how that sounds to people. People always find a way to twist things and make it sound sexist, because I'm a black man. I'm used to people misinterpreting my words, and I don't give a damn at this point. But I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are on that there's a difference between the victim who really truly is unsuspecting, right, versus the victim who was okay with everything until they weren't okay anymore. What do you think, Nomalanga?
Yeah, well, one of those is a victim and one is not. And actually, the one who was co-signing something until it wasn't working for them anymore, and then decided to attack a person because they were close to them and have inside information that can destroy them, that person is not a victim. And I will also add that they're just as much of a perpetrator, because what they do is they dilute victim stories. Now we question more victims who are legitimate victims because they're people who are not legitimate victims. So they are just as damaging, I believe, as a perpetrator. In other words, a person who falsely accuses someone of sexual assault, to me, is also damaging actual victims of sexual assault, just in the same way as the predator is.
Well, I mean, and let's not forget, when you talk about, sexual assault's a serious crime. So you accuse something of that, or you accuse someone of that, and if it's not true, some would say you're as bad as a rapist, because believe me, bad things happen to people when they go to prison. Like you're sending someone away to potentially be raped in prison, and in prison, from what I understand, they don't have rape counselors and a Me Too movement and people that are going to protect you. You'll just get raped again the next day, right? So a person who condemns someone to be raped is not just as bad as a rapist, but actually worse. Because it's one thing for it to happen once, it's nothing for it to happen, hundreds of times, which is something that's a reality in prison. So I think that's why it's important for us to scrutinize and to just say, okay, you're making this very serious accusation against this person. We need the proof, and it has to be clear, and we want to keep people safe, but we got to be honest. And I don't really know if these things are honest. I'm going to actually share in a second T.I.'s his side of the story and his response. But I also wonder if everybody, let's do a straw poll, yes or no. How many of you that so a woman and has some text messages apparently that prove that there were other alleged victims, but she doesn't. From what I understand, there's no information about the origin of the messages, legitimacy, things like that. But her name is I don't have her name. Sabrina, is it Sabrina something, or did I get that wrong? Anyway, she's claiming that T.I. and Tiny Peterson's her last name. I don't have her first name in front of me. But so Mrs. Peterson is saying that T.I. and Tiny allegedly pressured them to use drugs, pressured them into sex. Now, I didn't see anything about rape or anything like that. It sounds like they say pressured into, which is kind of a vague statement, right? Like, what does that mean? If someone if someone says pretty please, and you say, okay, I'll do it, that's not the same as somebody really forcing me to do something, right? I've been pressured into doing a lot of things, but at the end of the day, I had to be responsible for what I agreed to participate in, right? So give me a yes or no in the chat. Do you believe that she is 100% truthful? Do you believe that she's 100% victim? Or no, you're kind of questioning, you're not sure, that you kind of think maybe there's some BS going on here or some personal vendettas? Give me a yes or no. What do you think? Okay, Light of Jay says stop protecting Black celebrities. Well, I think that's another point. That's a valid point to bring to the table too. Do you think, Noma, that there are some people who believe that celebrities are always innocent? Like, do you think that there are people who will just ignore it just because T.I. and Tiny are famous?
Well, I don't know about T.I. and Tiny, but I do know there are people who, will die saying Obama was the best thing that ever happened to America, and then there's obviously people on the opposite end of the spectrum, and there's nothing you can say to change their mind. But I personally, I don't care much for T.I. or Tiny, so I have no reason to protect them. I do think sometimes people who are celebrities or more famous or whatever do tend to get away with more. And sometimes it is because people will more readily believe them. They have the money and the resources to get the best lawyers and so on. So that sometimes they do tend to get away with more. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that they're also victimized by people who think it's okay to take advantage of the fact that they have more or that they could get something out of them and use it against them. So, it's a double-edged sword.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and say that that's the thing. People have biases either way. I've seen people that that will automatically protect the victim because she's a woman, right? As if women are not capable of lying, which actually undermines the idea that women and men, it undermines the idea of equality, right? If you tell me that men and women are equal, but yet you simultaneously try to convince me that women are just silly little children who, have no say in their personal choices. I don't believe it's one or the other. Like pick one, like stop that, right? So you have people that will say crazy, really stupid things like believe all women. What does that mean? Like, what are you talking about? Believe all men, believe all black people. Like, really? Are you that dense? Right? People like that, I'm not even really interested in talking to people like that. But then you have people that almost believe in another slogan, which is equally damaging, in my opinion, which is believe all celebrities, right? That anytime a famous person is accused of anything, that they must be good and they must be okay because they're famous and that's it. Studies show that actually that black people in America are more influenced by celebrities than other groups of people. Nielsen did a study on this. They actually showed that they basically told other companies, they said, look, if you want to sell a product to black people, just put a celebrity on it and they'll buy it. They'll buy laundry detergent because their favorite rapper uses that laundry detergent because they don't really know exactly who they are. Their values are not firmly sort of rooted in any sort of cultural tradition. So they just sort of do what celebrities do. They get their man, little boys learn how to be men from celebrities. I actually had a friend, literally, I kid you not, who called me this week, who told me that her son has a problem with Percocets. And there's a song by a rapper called Future where literally the chorus is Molly Percocets, Molly Percocets. So a lot of young people, millions of young people are getting addicted to these drugs because their favorite rapper is repeating these lyrics in the chorus. And that's the power of advertising. Advertising works. That's why they spend billions of dollars on it. People need to stop telling me that it doesn't matter. It matters. Advertising works, right? They wouldn't invest money in it if it did not work. So with that said, this celebrity bias, I think that's a problem too, right? Because some of these celebrities are not good people, and so what do you think of, what are your thoughts on that? I'm not even going to frame it as a question, but I almost feel that either way, some people have already made up their minds before they even see the evidence, before they even process a thought. Is this just inevitable? What do you think about that?
Well, the point of having these conversations is to try and be balanced and look at both sides, which I think we're doing. I will say also that another thing that happens to us if we're Black people living in America is that we tend to be victimized much more than most people, and without necessarily being aware of it, we're likely to jump onto a victim bandwagon. So, for example, if I thought that it would help for me to say, so-and-so is a horrible person, let's get her, I can rally other people to say, so-and-so is a bad person, let's get her. That's why, again, I always question, like, okay, even if it's a group of people saying it, it could just be a malicious and vicious attack. But at the same time, again, people are coerced. What was the word they used again? Pressured.
I saw the word
pressured or whatever it is, more easily, of course, by a celebrity, but it still comes down to the fact that you had a choice to not participate in what they were calling you to do. A quick story. I just read a Facebook post maybe just earlier this week where a young woman who was advocating for women's rights and things said that if a man and a woman are having, a date or an interaction or whatever, and she used the word, and he insists or pressures her into sex, afterwards she can claim she was raped. And then I say, well, how are men going to know if they're actively seducing a woman, convincing her? And then she says yes, that she won't turn around. I mean, that's what it used to be. It used to be this dance where there's seduction, She says no, she's coy, she's playing hard to get, all this other stuff, right? And then eventually she'll give in if that's what she wants to do. But now we're being asked to believe that if somebody says not now or something like that, and eventually says yes, that we should actually call that rape. So I feel like there's too many opportunities for people to use certain words, and then at the end they say rape, coercion, pressure, and then also call it rape. And again, I'll go back to the fact that that's so unfair to a person who was actually, beaten, battered, and raped. To say that he talked me into it, I took some drugs and I don't know what happened, so I'm going to say I've been raped, is a very different thing, because there are women who are violently assaulted and forced to have sex against their will, and they live with trauma for the rest of their life. And for us to equate that with someone who regrets their bad decisions from the night before, or was desperate for money, desperate for an opportunity, or whatever it is, to take that and equate with somebody who innocently thought they were going on a date or was going home or was with a friend and then was violated. I don't think that's fair at all.
Do me a favor, please hit the thumbs up button, share button, and subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. In case you wonder what we're talking about, I'm speaking with Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses, and we're talking about these ugly allegations against T.I. and Tiny, but not just talking about their personal life. This is not a gossip fest. This is really about asking ourselves, what should be the standard? Should there be a standard? How do you discern guilt and innocence without destroying somebody's life in the process? And if you could, please hit the thumbs up button. This is a platform for intelligent Black people. We want to have intelligent, thoughtful conversations. Our goal is not to jump on bandwagons or to be stupid and all this other stuff. We actually really want to understand what's going on in the world, because remember, a lot of you have sons, that are out here that are going to have sex, right? That's what people do. That's what human beings do. And we don't want your son to get caught up in a false allegation. We don't want your daughter. I got daughters. Nomalanga has daughters. We don't want your daughters to get caught up in tough situations either. So it's really about sort of understanding what's going on so we can approach these things in a way that makes sense. Because this whole, social media like attack thing is, it may seem easy to do. Or this whole, I'm going to rally everyone to my cause because I've got a personal vendetta. That is easy to do, but that's a problem because people use that. They manipulate that to their own advantage. I'll give you an example. Byron Allen had this $1 billion lawsuit against Comcast, where Byron Allen's trying to get paid. He's mad because Comcast won't pick up his shows. His shows were not that interesting. These were not Black shows. He wasn't doing things for the Black community. Charlamagne the God actually called him out on this. And but he's trying to get shows like Pet.tv and Cars.tv on Comcast, and Comcast is like, we don't want your shows. They suck. We don't hate all Black people. We just don't like your shows, right? Well, Byron Allen goes out and makes this a Black thing. Like, hey, y'all, they trying to take all of our civil liberties, y'all. They trying to go and ruin civil rights for all Black people, y'all. We got to get them, y'all. And people got caught up in that because, again, they were traumatized and triggered. Like, oh no, the white man trying to take our liberties or whatever, right? So they're protesting in DC on behalf of this billionaire who ain't gonna write no checks to anything that Black people are really trying to get done, right? Like, he's not really stepping out like that, and he wins his lawsuit. Comcast eventually caves and gives him, his bag of money. He walks away with $500 million or $200 million or whatever, and that's it. And then Black people have been used yet again. And this is one example of many I could name right now where people will take a personal beef and make it bigger. Like, Nomalanga and I get into a disagreement. I love Nomalanga to death, so that ain't gonna happen. Nomalanga is the best on earth at resolving disputes, and that's one of the reasons why you have been one of my best friends on the planet for 12 years. But if Nomalanga and I get in a disagreement, and she says, Me and Dr. Boyce got into it, and because Dr. Boyce hates all black women. Well, no, that's tons of black women in my life. Maybe you and I just have an issue because we're two human beings who got into a dispute. And I think that we have to be able to separate those two things. And people can't really do that. So I saw T.I.'s apology, which I'm actually going to show everybody. Not his apology, his statement. I don't want to call it an apology, his statement. And he had to sort of do a lot of backflips to say, I respect black women. I want to protect black women. Black women deserve to be heard. And that should all be kind of a given. Like, why is it that this one situation with this one person has to suddenly become some sort of mandate about your relationship with all black women everywhere, you know, including your mama? That's crazy to me. I hate when people make it political. What do you think, Norma?
I kind of alluded to it earlier that, Black people, we do have just, by the very nature of living in an environment where we're the minority and we're the most oppressed, we are kind of traumatized and easily triggered and to relive some other trauma or some other horrible victim situation that we've had and displace it onto a current situation. So we're easy to manipulate in that way. Even I find myself having to question myself sometimes when I feel like something is really, really unfair. And I think, well, is it really unfair? Or am I replaying something else? So that's true. And then the other thing with what you said is, like I said, I have friends I've seen go through this who happen to have gotten into the public eye. And they had people who just, whether it was people they knew personally or people who they just kind of dealt with, group themselves and just attack. And because I know those people personally, I just knew it wasn't true. And it was very, very alarming to watch it play out. So like I said, I'm always going to ask questions when someone says, he's a celebrity or she's a celebrity and she did X, Y, Z. I have to ask questions. And T.I. and Tiny deserve the same. We should ask questions and see if what they're saying is actually true or if it's just another one of those vicious attacks. But again, as I said, it has to be balanced. We can't assume they're innocent just because they are the celebrities,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I agree with you 100%. And Noma, I know you've got a lot of stuff going on with family and everything. So my question to you is, I was going to show T.I.'s statement on the issue. Do you have time to watch it? That was. You do? Okay. Well, just so y'all know, Nomalanga just had a beautiful baby girl or with her husband, and so she may have to pop up and do mommy duties, and I assume y'all all agree about the importance of mommy duties. We've talked about how being a mother is the most important job on earth. The second most important job is being a father. So strong black fathers stand up. But Noma may have to walk away to do mommy duties, but just stay tight. And Noma, if you got to go, you just hit the end button and bounce out. Everybody will understand. So let Noma know that you appreciate and understand what she's working with a newborn baby. So let me show you all T.I.'s statement on the issue. I think it's very important for black men and women to be heard. And I think it's a worthy statement to kind of take a listen to, and then we'll kind of talk further from there. So here we go. I want to play it now. So let me start from the beginning and share my audio.
Hey, so as I could probably guess or imagine, it's been extremely difficult for me to remain quiet in light of all the things that have transpired and all of the egregious allegations that's been tossed around about me and my wife. But there's a reason for that, and I don't mind sharing it. You see, if a person does not have any right to criminally or civilly have you in court, they have no right. The best thing they can do is get you for a defamation suit, drag you in court, make you pay their legal bills to get you in court. Now, I mean, at this point, man, this is the point where that don't even matter to me no more, okay? But that's the motive, that's the strategy, that's the intention. Say a whole bunch of false stuff about you that get people to believe and make them come out and say, they're a liar, they're a liar, they're a liar. And then they say, see, they call me a liar. That's defamation. Then they drag you in court, get you under oath and all that. Because unfortunately, right now, it doesn't matter as much what they can prove you did. It matters what you can prove you did. You know what I mean? And that's just an unfortunate place that our society has made it to. But I want to be clear about one thing. Women who have been victimized deserve to be heard. Women, black women in particular, should be supported, protected, defended, and uplifted. However, evil has no gender. People with evil intentions have no gender. A threat comes in all shapes and sizes. I would never treat a woman the same way I would treat a threat. All right? So I think that has to be distinguished. First and foremost, I want to say my wife is a beautiful person with an amazing spirit and a kind heart. She's a devoted mother, and she has a humble soul. She don't deserve it. She don't deserve it. Now, what we're not going to do is open up the door to my bedroom, as you shouldn't have to either. Open up the door to my bedroom for everybody to come in, chime in, and make their opinions about what we do and don't do or shouldn't do. But I will say this. Whatever we ever have done has been done with consensual adults who into what we into and like what we like. If we want something, we know exactly where to go to get it. We ain't never forced nobody. We ain't never drugged nobody against their will. We ain't never held nobody against their will. We ain't never made nobody do anything. We ain't never trafficked anything. Well, sexually trafficked anything. I ain't never raped nobody. Never raped nobody. Also, I'm gonna tell you what's factual. Tell you what's factual. There have been fake stories put up that blog sites anonymously sent to this person. Blog sites anonymously sent fake stories to this person, and the person posted it as though it was a victim, that they were sure that it was a victim and it has been victimized. And what this does is it dismantles the mechanism that women have created for themselves. You can't weaponize something with baseless claims. These are not stories of actual events. They're not. And I have proof of that. And that's why I said it. I have proof of that. I have proof of people who have gone on live with this person and they later said, man, I just wanted some clout. That's what I can't believe they actually posted this shit. I just wanted some clout. So this is what we're dealing with, man. This is what we're dealing with. And also, I pose you a question. How you going to be a victim and an attacker at the same time? How are you being victimized if you are violently attacking someone? Women who have been victimized deserve to be heard. They deserve to feel comfortable and confident. They deserve to feel supported. And that's supposed to get them to a place where they can show their face and say, this is what happened to me. This is who did it. And so the necessary steps can follow. This is not that. This is not that. I also want you to know it's evil at play. I'm talking about evil. I'm talking like, evil. And there's been a history. We've had a history in dealing with the particular individual in question. We've had a history of it, man. Had a history of it. And there is a record of pattern behavior like this. A history of harassment. Not, I'm talking about, listen, this is not my opinion. I'm just saying what's on record. A history of violence on record. And we can't just, weaponize social media to take down people who have families and who communities depend on. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about who have done everything that they can to uplift and help to evolve our communities. We can't tear our people down like that. And this has taught me a lot. But one thing I know, man, I will not be bullied. I am not afraid. I am not ashamed. And I mean, and the truth will be revealed, man. But until then, man, hey, listen, man, any woman out there who's going through things, who have gone through things, if you have a story, and you should come forward. You should, but don't lie, because that tear the whole vehicle down. Don't lie. The truth is what needs to be heard. The truth. And I can deal with the truth all day. But at some point, man, it has to be some sort of, it got to be something that happens if you come and make baseless claims that are false about somebody that have a negative impact on them, their livelihood, or their freedom. Something got to be done about that. But I was built for that. I was born to be in this position. I was born to be in this position, to face pressure and sit in the fire, so it benefits others in the future. I was born to be in the position. God put me here for this. So whatever evil has been conjured up to come against me, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. But man, I got a lot of love for everybody who's been calling me, who's been in support of me and my wife. Shit, man. We'll be back to doing us, man, sooner than later. You dig what I'm saying? Love and respect.
All right. Okay. So Nomalanga. Okay, so we just heard T.I.'s statement, his defense on this allegation from Sabrina Peterson, I believe that's her name, who basically claims that T.I. and Tiny have been engaged in sex trafficking and all kinds of other illegal behavior for pressuring people to use drugs, things like that, against their will. He came out pretty strong with his defense. What are your thoughts after watching that video?
I actually believe him. And I would also have to hear the other side to decide if I believe them over him. But I noticed that he said a few things that I said, that, when people make false allegations, it actually damages. He called it a mechanism that we have in place for people who are actual victims to get justice. And then another thing is he jokingly said we never trafficked anything. Then he corrected it and said never sexually trafficked anything. So he also said something to the effect of a lot of things may have happened in me and my wife's bedroom, but we never forced anybody. So he's basically trying to say that, again, I said I really don't care what him and his wife do, and if they take drugs and they invite other people into their bedroom or whatever, that's for them to do. But again, somebody who is privy to that doesn't get to use it against them when they decide that they have a vendetta against them.
Yeah, you know what it makes me think about? It makes me think about when I was 9 years old. I remember there was a time where I went to the store with a friend of mine, and we were in the store, and we didn't have a whole lot of money. I think I bought like a piece of bubble gum or whatever, and we came out of the store, and my friend pulls a candy bar out of his pocket. And I said, "Where'd you get that candy bar?" We didn't have any money to buy a candy bar. And he tells me he stole the candy bar, right? He just lifted it, put it in his pocket. And I didn't want to be a snitch. I said, no, I was like, whoa, you're going to get in trouble. But I didn't care. We were about 10 years old, whatever. So we split the candy bar and went on about our business. And then the next day, my mother got a phone call from this kid's mother saying that my son told me that your son Boyce stole a candy bar. And I'm like screaming bloody murder, like, no, I didn't steal the candy bar. He stole the candy bar. Right? I was really angry because I've been falsely accused, basically. And the interesting thing was that my mother, her whole position, and I don't even know to this day if I agree or not. I'm still mad about it. right? But the thing was that her position was that if you really wanted to clear yourself, you would have told somebody when it happened instead of waiting until until now. Now you want to come clean. Now you want to talk about it. But before you didn't want to. You split the candy bar with him, right? And so this isn't a perfect analogy, but it basically, I think in this world, like you have people that get into shady situations with other people and they split the candy bar. Like, I'm working, like Omarosa's working with Donald Trump and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff, maybe some illegal stuff, but they're splitting the candy bar and she wants to be loyal. So she doesn't talk about what he's doing, like, in an authentic way. But then when it doesn't benefit her, like, she gets booted out of the White House and they say, oh, well, she's the crazy one. She's the criminal, right? Then she's like, no, they're the criminal. I was just watching. I didn't, no, but you were there. You saw it happen and you split the candy bar. And, and I almost feel like there's a difference between a victim who literally is like, look, I don't want any parts of this. I'm going to go, I'm going straight to the police right now, whatever, versus somebody who's splitting the candy bar with you. And then when things are not good anymore, when you're not friends anymore, when it's no longer working, then suddenly it's like, no, they did it. And it's almost like a deal with the devil kind of thing. When you're making deals with the devil, like, don't be surprised when the devil behaves like the devil, or don't be surprised when it turns out bad, right? So I think that what a lot of people are seeing with this, and I don't even know if this is right or wrong, but I think what a lot of people are seeing is they're saying, okay, so you're telling us that T.I. and Tiny were doing these terrible things to you, but you were all down for it for a really long time. What's the difference between now and then? What exactly happened that led you, because 3 years ago, if we had talked to you about them, and if we had come to you and said, we think that T.I. and Tiny are not good people, we think that they're into some shady, terrible stuff, you might want to get away from them, you would have defended them. You would have said, no, these are my friends. He mentors my sons. His wife is a wonderful person. So what's the difference between 2021 and 2017? That's what I'd like to know. So I think that's a legitimate question, don't you think? What do you think, Norma?
Absolutely. I think it is a legitimate question. And also there's many layers. You could have maybe not split the candy bar. You could have not told. That would make you less of an accessory, or you could have told them that's very bad. I'm not your friend anymore. There's so many levels, right? Where you could, but once you are participating and then when it doesn't serve you anymore, you go tell. I might have a hard time believing what you're saying, first of all, and then your motives for saying it. And that's what this sounds like. I remember even with the Bill Cosby thing, might be a bad example because, again, that's so polarized, right? But I can remember there were people who said, well, I went to him and they went to him like 10 times. And then he helped me get a place in this show. And, he was our family friend and me and my mom and dad had lunch with him and blah, 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 blah. And then I decided that 10 years later or 20 years later, I don't like what happened and I'm going to say something. That's very confusing. Even for me, I'm a woman. And I do get that sometimes when you've been victimized, it can take a while before you get the courage to say something. When you're very young and a man is much older, that's also a thing. I understand all those things, but even in the even with understanding all those things and being a woman, I still found some of it like, no, that's ridiculous. He gave you a part in a show. You went back over and over and over, and now you want us to believe you're traumatized? No. Sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Well,
you're not in the same position as somebody who got violently raped.
Yeah, it does end up coming off like, okay, it sounds, a lot of people would look at scenarios like that and say, okay, it sounds like y'all had an arrangement and the arrangement didn't work out, right? Like almost like two drug dealers who say, look, you give me $1 million and I'll give you the cocaine. And then they don't give you the $1 million. And then you say, he's evil. He's a drug dealer. It's like, no, but you were doing business with him before. You're just now trying to jump on the victim side because things didn't work out for you. But if things had worked out for you, you would still be doing what you were doing before. And I'm not saying that this doesn't mean that there's not more to talk about, but I do think that there has to be a line drawn between scenarios where there are unassuming victims who literally legitimately want nothing to do with any of that versus people who were okay with whatever little situation y'all had and are now disgruntled. Those are two different categories of people. Now I'm gonna bring in another person, Miss Jade Arundel, aka Lioness Crown. How you doing today, Jade?
I'm doing well. Hey, dog. Hey, sis Nomalanga. How are you?
Hi, Jade. Good. How are you?
Great. I wanted to make sure I came in because this topic has been on my mind since yesterday. I did a live on this on Fly Nubian Queen, and a lot of folks were in there, and I tried to bring balance to the conversation. I had to be very, very mindful of when I'm speaking about this T.I. and Tiny thing that we are calling what's being said allegations. We're not just going and flying with rumors or things that have not been proven. And I actually came into the broadcast with more questions than I actually had answers, because quite frankly, nobody was in these people's bedrooms. Nobody knows exactly what happened or what allegedly happened. However, we have to be really, really mindful when we are thinking about these things. If we're not elevating the conversation around larger implications that we can draw from this, then, it's non-constructive and it's pointless. But what I felt very, very uncomfortable with was like the level of the quickness, how quickly people started to believe these things without there having to be any proof, right? And so this goes back to the whole Time's Up, Me Too, foolishness that people have been indoctrinated into, which I really don't appreciate. But the other thing too is not discounting this brother and his wife's contributions that have been made to the community. T.I. has been involved in a lot of political conversations about things politically and financially, economically that could benefit Black folks, and really advocating for us as well. He has invested money into Killer Mike's bank and these things. And so I know exactly what it's like when we go back and we read the history of COINTELPRO or the history, multiple examples of Black people of power and privilege and wealth being sabotaged deliberately by the powers that be. Now, I can't discount any of the allegations, just off the bat, because I do believe that if they did those things and they're horrible, I have zero sympathy for them whatsoever. But at this point, we just don't know. I did see an update that came out yesterday, since I did my broadcast yesterday, in which our brother spoke to these allegations. And I have to be honest and say that I kind of believe him.
You believe, when you say you believe him, you believe T.I.?
Yeah, I believe his side of the story. It came off as very, very credible.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay, so you so you felt that T.I.'s explanation was credible, and you felt that he might be telling the truth?
Yeah, I think there's a possibility that he could be telling the truth, but again, I cannot make a definitive statement, right? Without any evidence. And I think that's what makes these things so messy, because these things are circulating on social media and it's a hearsay thing. It's a he said, she said, right? But until we get evidence, I don't definitively know. But I think that, what he was saying was, was pretty credible,
Interesting. Well, I think, I thought it was important for him to defend himself publicly, right? I thought that was the right thing to do. The hard part is that you don't know what to believe, right? Because you can't go around here advocating for sex trafficking. I mean, I am the first one to line up and say T.I. is one of the most talented hip hop artists that I've ever seen, and I followed his music for a long time. I'm a legitimate fan of T.I.'s music, and you learn, actually, believe it or not, you learn a lot about artists by listening to the music. They pour their souls into it. That's why, for example, when I met Ice Cube, I kind of knew him pretty well, honestly. From when we talked, he was exactly the person that I thought he'd be, based on the fact that I've been listening to his music for a long time. And so with T.I., I think with him, I think that what he's got to confront and deal with, and I say this without presuming to know what went on here, but he's got to deal with the fact that hip hop music, the industry he's been involved with, hasn't exactly been the most respectful toward women, particularly Black women. So there is an inherent contradiction that people are going to feel when you say, I advocate for Black women, I love Black women, I respect Black women, and then you got this trail of music that you've made that really doesn't really put women in the best light. And I know that there's some nuances to all that, but it's real. Like as a community, we got to address this. Too many Black women are being hurt by this, right? So I think that when T.I. comes and says these things, I think that maybe this is a growth opportunity for him. He says he learned a lot, and I hope that one of the things he's learning is that we've got to kind of confront what appears to be a hypocrisy and a contradiction. One minute, you got these lyrics that are way out there, right, when it comes to women, and I've heard them all. I mean, I listened to all of his music, but then you're checking your daughter's hymen to make sure that she's pure and chaste and everything else, which is right there. That's offensive, right? I didn't quite understand that, but I understand the desire of a father to protect his daughters, right? But what I think has to evolve out of this is that we have to understand that as Black men, as stewards of the community, it's not just my job to protect my daughters. It's also my job to try to protect everybody else's daughters, or everybody who doesn't have a father to protect them. It's not like you've got the daughters that are worth protecting and then the daughters that are just garbage, right? You got to find a way to balance that, and still acknowledge natural sexuality that people have. People are going to do what they're going to do, but I still think that this is heading to something bigger. It's heading to the fact that this empowerment movement, which Me Too's part of it, but Me Too's kind of too much. Me Too's a little bit oppressive, but this empowerment movement is going to get to hip hop. And what's going to happen is when they get to hip hop, they're going to go back and look at music that's been made for the last 25 years, and they're going to say, come on, and they're going to start looking at things that happened in the 90s and the 2000s that were overboard. And I think that men are going to have to deal with that, right? And I think that that's going to require us, I think, to be honest, and at the same time just acknowledge the criticism, but still stand firm, right? Because here's the other problem you have too, is that everybody wants to destroy a Black man. Like destroying Black men is like a sport now. Like they just hunt them like the way you hunt ducks and chickens. And I don't want to see T.I. get destroyed out of this. I don't want to see his family get destroyed. And I think allegations require proof. That's the big thing right here too, is that when you're making accusations, you have to prove it because you're ruining somebody's life. You cannot ruin a person's life without having clear, definitive proof that they clearly did something wrong. And that's what's missing in this situation. Please, I'm done talking. Did either one of you ladies have something to say? Oh, go ahead, Noma.
I'm going to have to go, but I did want to say two things before I do. The first one was that I really did agree with Jake that in looking at the video, and I said it after we looked at it, I felt he was being genuine. If I had to go just on that video on whether I believe him or not, I would say but again, court cases aren't won by my intuition, right? There has to be more, there has to be proof and so forth. But to just off of the bat, I do believe him. I feel like I should believe him based on that video. The second thing that I wanted to say was that T.I. can be two things, right? He's a father. I'm not sure if he has daughters. I know he has a lot of kids, and I assume some of them are girls because of that hymen story. So I have to assume that, of course, he has daughters. And he has a wife that, I've seen stories go back and forth with them, but they've kept their marriage together. So we can assume that he can love, honor, protect, and do all these things, and then have this other persona that talks trash about women. It's extreme. It's two different things. But again, I don't think that he rapped about and hoes or whatever else. I don't listen to his music. The fact that he's actually a family man who has devoted his life to one woman and takes care of his family and his children. He can be two things. Yeah. So even if, again, we don't agree with what he does in his bedroom, we don't get to say he's a sex trafficker and a sex abuser just because we don't agree with what he does in his bedroom.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And so, by the way, Tony Lindsay just joined us, and so he's got some things to say on this. So, Tony, I'll let you get the first word. What do you think about this whole thing with T.I. and Tiny and the allegations of sex trafficking and everything else that's being made? What are your thoughts?
Hey, peace to everybody. Peace, Sister Jade. I haven't seen you in a while.
Peace. I know. How's
No.
Muslim doing?
Oh, he's good. He's good. He's good.
Oh, okay. Tell him I said hi.
All right. So yeah, I just wanted to. I'm not here for long, but I just had to jump in on this conversation. As far as T.I. is concerned, like I know people that know T.I., people that have worked with T.I., and so I know a little bit about his character. So personally, I don't believe that any of this is true. Okay, I just want to make that clear. But I also think that we need to acknowledge that Black people, especially Black men, are held to a different standard of accountability in this country. And allegations against Black people tend to serve as all the evidence that you need. And that's why you'll see like people like Kevin Spacey and Woody Allen walking around free and Bill Cosby's in jail, right? So we know there's a different standard. Now, I just want to tell a quick little story. It's about my little brother. When my brother was, I think he was like 9 years old in elementary school, he got suspended from school and almost arrested because a little white girl decided to go up to him and give him a kiss on the cheek on the playground. Right. And I think that that is a display of the systemic attack on Black males, whether it be from birth to death in this country. So I think T.I. is just a larger celebrity example of this continuous practice of, systemic violence against Black men.
So you think that I don't disagree with you, right? We all know the Black man is under attack. Accusations, that's all you need, right? And I think that as a community, we can make a decision right now to at least have a higher standard, right? Standards are required. But I think also there's some celebrity worship sometimes that we get into that can cause us to let things slide that should not slide. Now I'm not saying this applies to T.I. and Tiny because I don't think there's enough evidence. I just don't. I think that it sounds like they have a personal issue with somebody they used to be close to and it's spilled over into the public. But I think in general, I know for a fact about some things that happened, particularly in the hip hop music industry, that were very harmful to women that should be addressed. I know women in the hip hop music industry who never even felt like they could even go into the industry unless they were doing a Cardi B or Nicki Minaj type thing, either as a performer or even working in the back office. The sexual harassment, the terrible things that were going on in the industry. And I think that this I connect the two in a way where it's kind of like we get to a point where we almost feel like anything goes. And again, if you go listen to T.I.'s music, and I'm not criticizing T.I., he's my favorite. I think he's the most talented rapper of all time, actually. I really do. I know people are going to disagree. I don't want to debate about hip hop because there is no debate. I'm not going to debate you about this. I think he's as talented as Tupac. But the thing about it is, if you listen to the music, you can hear a message that pretty much says that because I'm famous, because I'm rich, I can do whatever I want. And this started really in the 80s, when Too Short used to rap about how he would pretend like he was going to give his money to a woman so he could get her to have sex with him, and then he wouldn't give her anything, right? Like I'm gonna use these hoes type of mindset. And even then, people knew that was wrong. But I think people kind of let it go because they were like, oh, well, these guys are famous. They're making money. We don't want to tear down the Black man. And I don't think we should put that much pressure on the Black woman to sort of feel like no, every Black man must be protected no matter what he does. That's a problem, right? Again, I don't put T.I. in this category. Now, if there's more evidence that comes forth, then we have to address that. But I think just as a whole industry, with T.I. being the leader that he is, I think it is important to mentor some of these guys to kind of say, look, slow down a little bit. The Black woman is going to support you in general because they're loyal like that. But you keep pushing the envelope like this and you leave a trail of victims everywhere you go, eventually those chickens are going to come home to roost. Jade, what are your thoughts? I mean, did anything I say make any sense?
It does make sense to a degree. I mean, I do agree that we can't just look at a brother and be like, oh, I'm going to, defend him and his foolishness, by any means necessary. And I know that's not what you're saying, but within the context of the hip hop industry, this is just the facts, Doc and Brother Tony. It is a male-dominated industry, right? It is misogynist. It's all of it, it's sexist and all of these things. these tropes, these stereotypes about women, and it's very, very toxic. I don't listen to it, period. And I also know that some of the same feminists and toxic feminists who are out here talking about Black men are perpetrating patriarchy, they're talking about the hip hop industry, X, Y, and Z. They're the same ones actually going out there twerking, on MLK Day and trying to turn that into something else. And then also, these are many of the same women who are also playing this music and listening to this music and sort of using these really degrading images of Black women, and they're trying to translate it and turn it into something that's positive. And these are the same people, many of whom really, really progressive, very, very liberal, and they're trying to advocate for things like legalizing sex trafficking or sex work. Right. And so I know that we can't have it both ways. That's not what we're saying. I know that's not what you're saying. But when I look at this and this conversation within the context of hip hop, the feminine movement, the way that the world is going, and it seems like damn near anything goes, it's kind of hard to put all of the pressure on the brothers who are participating in hip hop culture and the music scene or whatever, when you have a whole bunch of women who are saying, I have the right, this is women's empowerment and my body, I should be free with my body and my sexuality, and then using it to do other equally as toxic things. And so there has to be a balance of accountability. Yes, we have to hold our brothers to a high standard, and they are being held to a different standard, and we have to hold sisters to that same standard as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree with that. I mean, I think that standards, I just think everybody should agree that standards are called for, right? That's one of the problems we have in our community. There are no standards except money. If you get money, then anything goes. And I think that's kind of backward. So Tony, what do you think? I mean, how do you think that one thing I don't like about this whole thing with T.I. Tiny and the allegations is, this idea that people can just take this stuff to the court of public opinion. I'm gonna take it to the court of Instagram. I've just seen these things happen a lot. I remember when Jay Morrison had his situation with Tony the Closer, and they were settling all this on Instagram and bringing in people that don't have all the information. Well, that right there is going to set it up for that's going to set you up for a messy situation. Why not deal with it in a court of law? Why not deal with it with the police? So I almost think at least one basic standard that can be applied is to say, okay, why are you coming to us on the internet when you could go to the cops or when you should be filing lawsuits? What do you think about that?
Well, because the court of public opinion it carries the most effect and it can inflict the most damage upon people. The court of public opinion is actually becoming the driving force of the actual court system, if you think about it, and especially when it comes to like civil litigation, as far as that is concerned. And we got to also remember, like, everybody gets a come up off of Black degradation. That's Black men, that's Black women, that's white men, white women. This entire system, it's everything is like it propagates this ghettification of Blackness that everybody is getting a come up off of. So when you have people of influence in that same industry like T.I., I think it makes pretty much a lot of sense that those types of people are going to be attacked. You know what I'm saying? So while we should definitely hold our own people accountable, because we got to know at the end of the day, we're not held to the same standard of accountability. So a lot of these rappers, they go up in there, they're doing what they know is going to sell. Remember that. So it's not just like, oh yeah, we just want to talk about Molly's and Percocets and this, that, and that. It's not only just that. That's what is going to get them the deal. That's what's going to get them a certain level of success in that industry. So maybe we just need to be a little bit wiser, and maybe even as consumers demand better from them. So that might even help people like T.I. to be able to, have more influence of the direction of hip hop and the way that things are moving, and not be scapegoated to everything horrible once someone decides to just make some crazy allegations towards him.
Well, what when you talk about that with us as consumers with hip hop, I don't really see us as the dominant consumers of hip hop. I think, unfortunately, hip hop becomes it definitely becomes a little bit of a minstrel show, where the consumers of hip hop are the people that love to see Black men gangstered out, They love to see black women as hoes. These are other people. That's how they view you. And I think that's the markets that's driving everything. This is all white money. This ain't really black money. Now, what black people do offer that's of value is we give cultural authenticity to the rappers that they then are able to export to the world. So if I'm a rapper from the hood and I do a video in the hood with a bunch of broke people in the hood, on their bikes and wearing their wife beaters or whatever, eating bologna sandwiches, watching me, do my video, then that makes me look like I'm keeping it real. Like I'm really from the street. I'm really out here trafficking and whatever. And then I and then it's like, okay, so he's hood certified, which is almost like Bitcoin in the blockchain. You got to be certified through the blockchain in order for your Bitcoin to be valid. So then at that point, you can go sell it to the world. So then they go and it's the white kids on the college campuses that are pulling the money out of their pocket to see the minstrel show. And so I personally think that we got to kind of think about that in terms of just how that model destroys our community, because we're the one collecting all the toxic waste that comes from looking up to the ignorance. And the way I would compare it is like, imagine this 1920 you in the Cotton Club, and you got a jigaboo on the stage doing the coon dance, and he has a boss. And there's a white man who's watching this happen, and he's just loving it. He's clapping. He thinks it's great. Oh boy, you are so talented. And there's a busboy, a black kid, who works as he's waiting tables. He's cleaning off the table, and he's watching this white man admire this black man on stage. He's watching this white man, say, well, we're gonna give him a bigger contract. We're gonna pay him lots of money, right? So he's looking up to the minstrel show. He's looking up and saying, okay, this is how I can get respect from white people, which is something that, as a black person, that's all I've been trained to want, is to get white people to acknowledge me and to pay me and to tell me that I'm special. So that little black boy then wants to grow up and become a minstrel show artist. And the same thing happens now with hip hop artists. You see the rapper can't spell his mama's name, high as hell on drugs, like ruining his life, passing out. He's a super spreader of STDs because all the women he's sleeping with. He's rapping about killing other black people. But you think that's all okay because he's getting paid. He's driving the car you want to drive. He's got the house you want to live in. He's wearing the jewels you want to wear. So the little boy grows up saying, I don't want to be all these other things. I don't want to be like my daddy. My daddy works in the factory. I want to be like Future. I want to be like 2 Chainz. Because he got 2 chains. My dad ain't got no chains, right? And that's the toxicity of that whole industry in general. This was not created by us. Like all this, right. like hip hop was created by us, but the bastardization of it in terms of the disrespect of women and the violence against black, the genocidal KKK level violence against black people, that all came from white supremacy. What do y'all think?
Agree. I agree. I mean, that's pretty much what hip hop has become. I mean, we don't own hip hop anymore. If you think about it, the hip hop that I come from is like KRS-One, you know what I'm saying? Big Daddy Kane, Rakim, that's the era where I come from. I think you and I are the same age, boys, to be honest. So we come from a different generation, but I don't want to ignore though, the different trends and the way society is changing. But at the same time, I think voices like yours and ours, it's important for the older generation to still try to keep that balance and letting people know when you're being manipulated, because I think we are all being manipulated. Well, the hip hop industry, it serves a purpose. And I think a purpose that most of the people who participate in it either don't understand or are willing to kind of excuse because they're getting so much money from it. So when they're gatekeeping you, they're basically denying you access to wealth in that industry unless you do this. So yes, it's a bad decision, but yeah, and we understand why they're making it. So we need to figure out a way of I'm always about building our own anyway. So at the end of the day, we need to build our own institutions, from hip hop to social media to stock market platform, like everything. I'm all about everything black, because at the end of the day, the more we navigate through these systems that are theirs, we're going to continue to contribute to a system of white supremacy.
Right on. Jade, I'm going to have to bounce out in a minute, but I'd love to get a final thought from you, and then also from Tony as well. What do you think? You can talk about T.I. if you want to, or you can talk about the big picture. I'm gonna let you have the floor. Please go ahead.
Yes. So thank you so much for having me on today, Doc. These are my final thoughts. My final thoughts is that when we as adults get wrapped up in these sorts of, people get wrapped up in these scandals, or we're engaging in these controversial conversations, we have to keep in mind that children and young people are watching. And it is, in my humble opinion, we are doing a horrible job by leading our community, with leading our community by example. When these sorts of allegations, in this case with T.I. and Tiny, are floating around, not only does it send a bad message in terms of how we're talking about it, how we're vilifying someone, or running with the rumor mill, but we're also not taking into consideration the impact that these sorts of public controversies and dragging and sort of public shaming, especially without any concrete evidence or facts, actually does impact, this woman's and this man's family. It impacts and it hurts and it harms their Black children. And so I think that we really do need to tighten up and kind of codify, kind of get on code in terms of like whether we are looking at these sorts of incidences and trying to make try to use them as examples of solving bigger issues or systemic problems within our culture or in our community, or if we're just like adding on to, the agenda and helping the white man by aiding and abetting white supremacy and the targeting of Black men, of Black women, and Black children, and therefore, working with them to like further break down our community. I think that we really do need to ask ourselves these questions. And then we also need to take a look at this. Like, listen, no one's perfect, right? No one's perfect on one hand. And on the other hand, I do believe that there are certain things that are just non-negotiable. I'm one of those people. Like, you molest children, if you rape people or whatever, and if you get the death penalty, like, I legit have zero guilt or empathy for you or whatever. And so I think that we also do have to tighten up, and, there's too many blurred lines in terms of what's permissible, what's appropriate, and what's not appropriate. And in this case, I don't know what the hell is going on. However, if they are guilty of doing something crazy like sex trafficking, drugging people and raping them X, Y, and Z, then they'll get they'll get whatever, is going to happen to them by God or the universe or whatever. And at the same time, I'm also clear that there's a deliberate effort to break down Black families and to, just sort of like destroy the reputations and the legacies of many influential people in our community who are not perfect, but who are actually trying to do something. And I see our brother T.I. and Tiny as people who have contributed, to our community. And so I want to see hard facts before I just jump on a bandwagon and condemn them with these rumors that are circulating. I'm not the person who's going to say, yeah, I'm going to believe this individual over here because they were born with ovaries or they have a lot of estrogen, or I'm going to look at this person over here and automatically assume that they're guilty because they were born with a prostate and have a whole lot of progesterone. I think that like we have to get out of this sort of socially engineered condemning of Black men on behalf of white supremacy. That's my final word.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you make, Jade. I mean, I hope we can at least agree that men and women are both capable of lying. I like to believe, when they say Black people are the canaries in the mine, we're the conscience of America. I also encourage us to take on that role of being the canary in the mine of common sense. To be the conscience of America when it comes to acting like you got some damn sense and not believing stupid stuff like, believe all women. Like that's a silly slogan. Or, even Republican versus Democrat. I think that we should focus on what we have in common as opposed to always focusing on what divides us, because you're going to ultimately destroy the country. If a brother and a sister are so caught up in winning a war with each other that they forget that preserving the family is what's most important, then you're not going to have a family anymore. So Democrat, Republican, that's where white people are tearing each other apart. I think Black people have to be more intelligent than that and realize you can disagree, but you ain't got to fight. You ain't got to take each other out. And also, these gender wars. I see that's what they're doing. I don't think I'm hoping that we won't have a gender war. because I'm willing to be held accountable as a black man, as long as I can also hold black women accountable without us making it into this, you hate black men, you hate black women nonsense. Like, that's just stupid, right? So with T.I. and Tiny, you're right, Jade. I like the point that you made that there is not enough evidence and information to condemn this couple blanketly. And also, we had to see this through the lens of what's been weaponized. T.I. used the word weaponized twice in his commentary about it. And I thought that was a good word, because we know that the attack on the black male is weaponized. And we know that all you need is an accusation. You don't have to hit the target. Just shoot the gun in any direction, and you're going to hit a black man in the head. And that's wrong. That's we're destroying too many important people that way, and that's not acceptable. So, Tony, your final thoughts?
Yes, I'm just going to be quick here. I mean, because I pretty much agree with everything you said. Jade, you were on point as usual. I would pretty much just close out by saying that social engineering, it's masterful at hiding itself because it's an attack on the mind, and it thrives by causing cognitive dissonance amongst people. So you can't even identify that you've been brainwashed. So everything that you hear that can very well be for your own good, you're going to fight against it. And I think we should also be careful about riding the rumor mill, because what we need to really do is let's give our people the same benefit of the doubt that you give to white people and other groups, because that's what's not happening right now. The status quo, it thrives upon distraction, and we are easily distracted today. So, let's be careful about the real world consequences of jumping on these bandwagons that attack our own people.
There we go. So everybody listening, remember, our goal is not to tell you what to think. That's what mainstream media does. They like to tell you what to think. MSNBC, a lady on MSNBC, one of the viewers told me, one of the people that watches our channel told me that a black lady on MSNBC said, don't worry about having to read up on what's going on. Don't worry about watching the press conferences. Just come to me and I'll watch it for you and I'll tell you what they said. And I said, don't you dare believe that nonsense. Don't you dare let other people give you your opinion. You form your own opinion. Right. Get your information. And that's what we're here for. We are not here to sway your perception in any way other than to encourage you to think a little bit, critically think about things so you can make decisions that are going to end up well for you and not have you on some stupid bandwagon that's going to go straight to hell. So thank you very much to Jade Arundel and also Tony Lindsay, our special guest for today, and Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses, who was here earlier. And thank you all for watching drboystv.com, the home for intelligent black people. If you could, please take 1 second, hit the thumbs up button, share, subscribe. If you believe in black intelligence and us being as smart as we can be, please follow the platform, because that's what we're going to do. We don't take offense if you disagree with us. We just want you to think and come to your own conclusion. I don't care what your opinion is, as long as it's your opinion and not somebody else's opinion. Can we agree on that? Put a yes in the chat if we can agree that your opinion should be your opinion, not an opinion somebody else gave you. So thank you very much, Jade and Tony. Thank you very much, everybody, and we will see you guys soon. Have a good day.